Hi, it's Carlos Zeus. This is CNN 10, and today is a throwback day.
Dallas, Texas is one of the big cities in the United States. It is a tourist spot, but that is not why we're here to talk about it today. We have Eric Vandergrift to further cover the story that happened in Texas 30 years ago.
Hello, my name is Eric Vandergrift, and today, about 30 years ago, Texas v. Johnson was a starting case in the U.S. So we are here in Texas in front of the National Republican Convention Center to discuss this controversial case. Gregory Lee Johnson performed part of this protest outside of the Dallas City Hall during this National Republican Convention. While around him, people, including himself, were saying things like, "America, the red, white, and blue, we spit on you," and other sayings that obviously expressed their discontent with America's political standings. Part of Johnson's background was that he was a believer in the Socialist Party, and this was at part of the height of the Cold War. This was a great concern for the U.S. government during this time. When Texas law enforcement showed up and arrested Johnson, they considered his actions under desecration of a venerated object and breach of peace. Later, both of these convictions would be overturned in the Supreme Court, but they were enough worry for Johnson for him to fight for his rights. Johnson was taken to a state court in Texas and lost his first case. Appealing to a next higher-up court, he lost a second time. For a third time, Johnson tried his luck and appealed to a third court, which they eventually agreed with Johnson and ruled that his flag burning was considered protected under the First Amendment. With this controversy between these courts, the Supreme Court was then unnecessary for involvement. Justices William J. Brennan Jr. and Justices Thurgood, Harry, Antonin, and Anthony joined Brennan in holding the majority vote to say that flag burning was protected under the First Amendment. Other freedom of speech cases, such as Tinker v. Des Moines about publicly protesting at school, and Schneck v. the United States, have had different implications on freedom of speech in the United States, just like Texas v. Johnson and the symbolic free speech that the case stands for.
10-second trivia. Judges of the Supreme Court must be nominated by the Senate, the President, the Vice President, or the House of Representatives. The correct answer is B, the President. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 of the Constitution describes this power of the President, saying he shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate.
With Supreme Court's involvement in this case, we have government expert Leilani to give you more coverage on this topic.
Johnson was later arrested and charged with desecrating a venerated object under Section 42.09A3 of the Texas Penal Code. A state court then convicted him of the crime and sentenced him to 1 year in prison with a fine of $2,000. In 1986, the Court of Appeals for the 5th District of Texas affirmed his conviction, but 2 years later, the state's Court of Criminal Appeals reversed it, holding that his act of burning the flag was a symbolic speech protected under the First Amendment. He was convicted and sentenced to 1 year in prison with a fine of $2,000 for violating a Texas penal code that prohibited the desecration of a venerated object. The Supreme Court reasoned that Johnson's burning of the flag was expressive conduct protected by the First Amendment and that the state could not criminally sanction flag desecration to preserve the flag as a symbol of national unity. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a controversial 5-4 decision, held that burning the American flag was a symbolic speech protected under the First Amendment, and Texas Court of the Criminal Appeals reversal of the appellant's conviction for flag desecration.
The controversy of this case impacts a lot of America. To explain both the good and the bad, we have Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
Hello, my name is Sanjay Gupta, and today we're going to be talking about how the First Amendment applies to this case. The Supreme Court agreed with Johnson. Many times before, the court had already said that speech is not limited to words. Conduct can also be speech if it is intended to send a message. The fact that Johnson's conduct involved an American flag only made it more obvious that he was trying to send a message. Johnson was not prosecuted for the expression of just any idea. He was prosecuted for his expression of dissatisfaction with the policies of this country. And that kind of expression is at the core of our First Amendment values. The court made it clear that even though some people were seriously offended by the flag-burning speech, that it didn't make it okay to limit the speech. Instead, the court said that the principal function of the speech under our system of government is to invite dispute. Ultimately, the court said Johnson's political expression was restricted because of the content of the message he conveyed. That is exactly what the First Amendment forbids. As an example, we can fly the Nazi flag as freedom of speech. Although it may anger many people, it is protected under the First Amendment. This allows for controversial and offensive opinions that can frustrate people with different views on the topic. That may be the downside of the First Amendment, but this protects our right to talk about our political views, and this helps restrict an authoritarian government in the United States. Some government examples have been seen throughout history to have problems with freedom of speech, such as North Korea.
To wrap up in total, Texas versus Johnson, we gotta go over the key points of what happened. After the controversy that followed with 4 cases, Johnson won the 4th case, which was in front of the Supreme Court. He won 5-4, which favored him, that what he did was freedom of speech. So I guess we shouldn't judge people for their opinions. Instead, we should address the hot situation and work to become a better flagship era. But my burning question for you, will Johnson and the flag ever make amends to their fiery conflict? Court, it'd be the Johnson changed America. I'm Carlos Zeus from CNN 10.